Welcome back to the Strength and Speed Podcast. I'm your host, Strength and Speed owner and Conquer the Gauntlet Pro, Evan Preparis. I got a guest with me on the line. It's kind of a little bit of a Q&A episode, a little bit of a discussion episode. Before we get to that, though, a quick word from this episode's sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Exoskin. If you're looking to pick up some Exoskin, you can head over to their website at exoskin.us and use code STRENGTH20 to save yourself 20%. Exoskin makes compression garments. They also make compression socks and Exo underwear. So the Exo underwear is their newest product. I just picked up a pair, I don't know, what was that, 2 weeks ago or so? And out of all their products, I really like that. I think that might be my favorite. So you can wear the Exo compression shorts like as underwear if you really want to, but they're a little bit thicker, like designed for more of the rough conditions of trail running and OCR. And the Exo underwear is a little bit thinner, so a little more comfortable. I have actually worn it as a standalone product while running on my treadmill in my garage, though, because it's probably not socially acceptable to wear something that thin out running in public. But yeah, Exoskin, they're diving into the OCR market. You can check them out over at exoskin.us and look up for Mud Run Guide. We got a couple of reviews coming out on there. All right, let's get to today's episode. So joining me, I have Kelly Williams. She's a member of Strength and Speed. Recently placed second at Tougher Mudder, Missouri, and in 2021 also placed second at High Rocks, Dallas in the Pro Division, and she is a physical therapist. So Kelly, welcome.
Thank you, Evan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we've had you on a couple times, so I'm not going to run through your whole bio. I know you've got a fair number of podiums there in elite races, and you've been an elite competitor for Toughest Mudder before. And yeah, just done a lot of good stuff. Give us a couple of qualifications on your professional side, on your physical therapy side, just so people are tracking.
Sure. I've been a physical therapist for almost 20 years, and I've specialized in sports medicine. So I have a lot of other letters behind my name that give me some street cred with the physical therapy world. And sports medicine is my passion, and I'm able to do that for my, athletic stuff too. So it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you're an athlete and like a fitness professional on both sides, right? So kind of like Alexis Buford, how she's a chiropractor and an athlete, right? Like you already know a lot of the questions that you would ask me as a patient. I feel like you know the answer to already because you know what I'm doing to my body because you run these races and you've experienced them, everything from short course all the way up to 24-hour world's toughest mudder. So yeah,
it definitely helps understand what people are going through. When you've done something firsthand already, they'll buy into what you're asking them to do for their treatment too.
That's true. Yeah. And can we talk about your new job yet? Is that set in stone yet, or is that still?
No, that's still not yet.
Okay, we can't talk about that yet, but I'm excited for that. And yeah, just excited for your new job and all that entails. All right, let's get to today's question. So we're going to be talking about, we posted on the Strength and Speed Facebook page, ask questions about injuries, and Kelly would answer them on air. And then we also wanted to talk a little bit about Tougher Mudder, Missouri. So Tough Mudder came back. It's their second event since 2019. Now, the first event was in Atlanta. Their second event was in Missouri. And we want to talk a little bit about that and that experience and how it has changed since Spartan has essentially taken over Tough Mudder. But let's start with the physical therapy side. Let's start with the questions. So we're going to start off with a question from Gary Shaw. Gary is our beer drinking ultra runner we've had on the podcast before. Recently finished the 200 miler. At one point had the record for 24 beers, 24 miles in under 24 hours before it was beaten a week later and then again a week after that. And he is also the race director of the Leaky Hourglass Ultra Run. So it's a race, I believe it's the last weekend in August, and essentially it's a last man standing event. But unlike other last man standing events, where you just run a set distance over a certain amount of time, usually it's around like 4 miles over an hour. His event, the hour time cap actually gets shorter, right? So like you're going to need to have a blend of speed and endurance in there. So it should be a pretty interesting event. Not sure it quite fits into my schedule, but I know he's still got a couple of spots left. So if you're interested in joining him for the Leaky Hourglass Ultra, you can check that out. Anyway, his question is nerve damage on the feet a common issue for ultra runners? After I DNF'd the 135 Outlaw 135-mile race this year. In less than ideal conditions, I've lost the majority of feeling in my big toes and its neighbor on my left foot. I didn't get frostbite or anything, but ever since that race, it constantly feels like those are two toes and the ball of my foot are asleep. Whenever they touch something, it feels like needle pricks. This was in February, and I've since run another 100 and a 200. I've learned to deal with it, but I'm curious if this is a common or if there's something I can do to regain feeling. All right, Kelly, what do you got here? I know some of the other ultra runners chimed in, but let's.
Yeah, that's a tough one, and nerve injuries like that it sounds like a nerve injury when you don't have, the feeling essentially in those areas, but it's a traumatic effect of that constant pounding on that area of your feet, and especially if the terrain is rocky or if you're crazy enough to do ultras on the road. But yes, those small nerve endings in that specific area of your foot can just get kind of smashed. Those sorts of things, they should come back over time, but I would imagine you could possibly have some damage that stays there for a while. Could be several months. For nerves to grow back, it's a slow process, but it sounds pretty localized to where he's getting that pounding on his feet. It varies. It's something you definitely have to get checked out specifically to make sure there's nothing up the chain causing that issue, but most likely it's that localized trauma. And running 100 and 200 mile races, you're going to cause some damage to some soft tissue on your feet. And over time, it should improve, but you would have to probably not run that much. So the feeling that he's getting, that like the pins and needles, so you can lose different types of sensation, one to pressure, one to temperature and touch, those sorts of things. So he can feel some of that deep pressure probably. And the pins and needles it might be coming back a little bit by the time he's rested or done, training for a race, and then start back up again. So it probably waxes and wanes in between.
Gotcha. So
but I don't think there's anything like, permanent or not. That's a tough one.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've had similar stuff. I'm not sure how much of it was just endurance and how much of it was cold, because usually they're aligned pretty well with toughest mudder or world's toughest, where I'm actually cold for a large portion of that. And I think the
peripheral neuropathy type of feelings from like world's toughest mudder, it was probably 6 months for me before I got the feeling back in my fingertips and all of my fingers. So it took me 6 months for that, but that was definitely cold trauma. So I'm sure they behave about the same way.
I think everything's back to normal, but I wouldn't be surprised if like my new baseline has just shifted and I don't realize that I'm not 100% back to normal. But I don't know. It doesn't bother me. So that
one's a tough question. Yeah.
All right, let's keep moving along. We got Adam Mazikas, which sounds like a nice Greek name. And he says, how long is the rehab for a ruptured Achilles? How many times should I go to therapy per week? What kind of movements will help me heal fully?
All right. And that, I should have asked a follow-up question first. It depends if he's had surgery or not. If he's had his Achilles tendon repaired versus what we call non-operative treatment, which is just you let it heal on its own. Either way, both of them are very, they're slow processes, and they go through different phases. If he was diagnosed with a complete rupture of his Achilles, they're going to brace him, immobilize that foot for several weeks, and there's going to be minimal weight bearing put on that foot. And a lot of times there will be a heel lift in there as well. So they actually want that Achilles to heal like in a shortened position. So it's not being stressed. And it's a very slow process. It's a boot, it's a mobilization, it's crutches when walking. It's that heel lift. And that at the beginning, the first 2 to 4 weeks, even 6 weeks, is pretty minimal stuff with physical therapy. So I wouldn't be surprised if they only saw somebody 1 to 2 times a week and then were given some basic exercises to do. And mostly you're working around it, meaning you're working other parts of your body and leaving that foot alone. with what you're doing on your own. When you're in physical therapy, you're going to do some easy isometric exercises in like a limited range of motion because you just don't want to stress that that Achilles that wasn't repaired. A lot of times, some aquatic therapy can work with that to regain motion and work on weight bearing, but it's very specific. The doctor, depending on who your orthopedic is, will give you very specific weeks guidelines. The first 2 to 3 weeks, it might be 25% weight bearing with a boot on, with the heel lift. And then, up maybe at 6 weeks, it can be full weight bearing and then getting out of the boot. If someone's had surgery, it's similar. You are immobilized in a boot and limited to weight bearing. And again, you'll have a heel lift as well in that boot that you're wearing. The results of a repaired Achilles tendon are very, very good. I have rehabbed basketball players and everything for Achilles tendon repairs, and they've gone back to, full play. So you can imagine how much jumping a basketball player does. Yeah. Sometimes people are scared. Do I get it repaired or do I just let it heal on its own? They're both long processes, but the repair have good outcomes. Again, the therapy, it's just going to depend on which he had. A lot of it can be progressed with 1 to 2 visits of therapy per week. You just have to do the homework that your therapist tells you. If you're someone who has to be held accountable, then ask them to go to therapy more often. Say, yeah. That's the thing. Some people need their hand held a lot more, or they know they're going to do too much. But either repaired or not repaired, there's very specific guidelines and weeks with that. You're looking months down the road before people begin to do some things like running and those sorts of things. I'm trying to think of like the full timeline of things, and that really depends. You're probably looking at 6 months of healing time with all of that. There's a little quicker healing time with it being repaired than there is a non-operative one. Those sorts of things they're driven by the orthopedic surgeon. And then someone like me, depending on what you have done, will craft the rehab around it. So like I said, I work around it a lot when I'm working with athletes. We work on everything else we can. And then we do a little bit on the foot. And then we gradually do more and more. With the repairs, there's a lot of soft tissue healing with it as well. This is a big incision on the back of their Achilles. So there's some scar tissue maintenance and some different things that people don't think about that go along with repairing something besides just them sewing it back together.
Gotcha. Yeah, interesting. And I like that with OCR, there's always other stuff to work on, right? I mean, it's a pretty much full body sport, so you can always find something to work around and focus on while whatever injured part of your body heals.
Yes, there'll be a lot of bike riding within Achilles tendon repair or non-operative repair. A lot of bike riding. Gotcha. So get a bike.
And I was also going to ask, I've never had that many lower body like serious injuries. Like I've partially torn, like a very minor, like probably a strain. It's probably a tear or whatever, but part of my quad at one point that was definitely not full or anything like that. But is there any, like a ruptured Achilles sounds pretty serious. Like are there any lower body injuries, right? Like as an OCR athlete, if I get this injury, like that's pretty much the end of my like I'll never quote unquote reach back to my normal potential again. Is there anything that like kind of pops at you where it's like, oh, he got that? Oh, that's a career ender. If you're racing as a competitive athlete or maybe just as a recreational. Yeah, go for it.
I have never been in that thought process that someone can't ever return back.
Okay.
There's, the things that they can repair and do, but it's as long as someone does the correct prescribed stuff along the way and doesn't rush things, there's no reason why people can't return to full capacity, especially with little sprains and strains and things. Those are things that they're easily, they're easily fixed with focused therapies and time. Some things people don't have the patience to wait, but
Gotcha.
you have to do specific things. You can't just wait. Like, oh, I hurt my knee. I'm going to rest for 4 weeks and then I'm going to be fine and go back. It doesn't work like that. And that's where people often get frustrated. They're like, but I stopped running for 4 weeks. I'm like, well, what else did you do? And they're like, well, nothing. And I'm like, well, that's why you're not any better. So that's the truth of the matter. And that's where people like myself, like when I've gotten injured lots of times. OCR is a dangerous sort of sport, and I've always come back swinging because I have that knowledge in my head and the patience to be able to go through the steps that it takes to heal completely. But there's no besides some traumatic head injuries and crazy things like that, or broken spines. I don't think there's anything that it's a matter of if someone wants to wait that 6 months to a year to come back to being a competitive athlete, recreational athlete, it depends where they want to come back to. It's possible to come back from most things besides, like I said, the big bad ones, spinal injuries or head injuries, something like that.
All right. So that's good news for anyone who's listening that may be dealing with something that's nagging or that's been bothering them for a while. So
yeah, get it checked out. Go to somebody, people, I just see people get frustrated a lot of times, or they have a surgery and the doctor's like, you're good to go. And they're not good to go. People, if they're an athlete, you typically need some guidance on how, just some simple things to regain their mobility and strength. And then a timeline of progression. The biggest thing is, you wouldn't wake up today and then say, hey, I'm going to go run a marathon tomorrow without training for it. So when you get injured, you have to train your body back. Kind of like if you not started from zero, but when you're starting over, and make it a slow process. You have to remember how long it took you to get to where your fitness level was at to begin with. And it helps give people a little bit perspective.
Got it. All right. Good answer. All right. Now, next question is from Rondell Jawan Snyder. He's an athlete. I've seen him. He's come and run KC Timber Challenge, finished, I think, about 5th there. And then he, I think, top 10, probably closer to 5th at Tougher Mudder, Missouri this past weekend. So his question is, so I ran my second Tougher Mudder this year in the Classic Wave, and after running for that long, my knees have excruciating pain that I can hardly walk afterwards. Is this just from runner's knee and I'm stuck with it, or are there exercises and stuff that'll help with that?
Well, there's always something that'll help with that. It's kind of vague. I'm one to ask people specific questions, but in general, those, it might be a 10-mile race, but it can take a few hours. So your, time on feet is a few hours. In Tough Mudders, you're crawling, you're jumping, your knees are getting kind of banged up. It's not a clean OCR specifically, but most likely it's just the trauma from the race. And it could be cumulative effect of the training up to it. Or if someone is not used to being on their feet for 2 hours, then that kind of, your body's like, whoa, I don't like that. Most likely it's just some acute swelling in the knees. Runner's knee is a general term for knee pain that's in the front of your knee, anterior knee pain. And it could be caused by several things. Some of the best things to help navigate some of that knee pain is to look at mobility and strength. Most people do the running part of it, but the mobility and strength part of it is essential as well. So making sure that your hips are mobile and your quads and calves and hamstrings are mobile. So a good flexibility and mobility program. And then focusing on foam rolling for the IT band. Areas on the outside of the leg typically will cause that kneecap to kind of shimmy over to the side while you're running or doing something. And so tightness on the outside of the leg a lot of times can cause that knee pain on the front. So foam rolling the IT band, which is on the outside of the leg, and then making sure that you're actually doing mobility and stretches. Those are the biggest things. Running specific strength exercises. They can be as simple as lunges. So strength training that you're doing things on one leg, that is important for running. Just doing squatting is it's good for strengthening your legs in general or doing deadlifts, but you need to incorporate some single leg strengthening exercises. So lunges, single leg squats, Bulgarian split squats or rear foot elevated split squat, single leg deadlifts, and working on some hip strength in other areas too. So working on the hip flexors, doing bridges, getting the glutes to fire as well, or easy things that you can work on to help prevent some of that knee pain as well. As the stronger your muscles are around the joint, the more it's going to help protect it and support it.
Gotcha. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I feel like when I first started running, so I don't know how long Rundell's been running for, but I know like when I first started running the first couple of years, like all sorts of random stuff would hurt. And I feel like the longer I've run and the more I've done some like cross training, like things that bother me, a decade, 2 decades ago are just, there's non-existent anymore. It just doesn't, I don't know, like it's.
Yes, your body will get accustomed to it as well. So yeah, if he's newer to the sport or newer to running, those longer distances, things are going to hurt more. That is a fact.
Yeah. I know my first couple of world's toughest mudders, like my feet hurt. Like I feel like the individual bones and like tendons and everything hurt in my feet. And now that I've been doing it for a couple of years, like I don't have that same pain that I definitely used to have.
Yeah, your body's just built up resilience by you doing consistent work in those same modalities. Yeah. So your body will get accustomed to it over time.
Gotcha. All right. So you're also the official physical therapist of the Conquer the Gauntlet Pro team. So I as we were coming on, I asked them, we had a little private group chat. I was like, hey, any questions for Kelly? And a bunch of people sent some stuff in. So you haven't seen any of these yet, but here's some other ones. Some of them are pretty broad, so we'll kind of take them as they come. But so the first one's from Amy Pagic. Any general tips for things all OCR people should have to do to help prevent injury? Obviously a big topic there, but
big topic there.
General recommendations for OCR athletes and avoiding injury.
It goes into kind of that last question is making sure that you are consistently training in things that your body's going to come up against. And so obviously that's running and trying to run on the same types of terrain that you might see. So don't always run on a treadmill and then think, you're going to be on this technical trail and do as well, or that your ankle's not going to roll. So your body needs to be used to things before you ask it to do it in a race, preparing for it. So making sure you have good mobility. Shoulders are a huge thing in OCR because we're hanging and swinging from things and climbing all the time. So shoulder mobility is super important. That's one of the bigger things with all the overhead type of stuff. And then your hips and your knees, those things for mobility are essential as well because you're crawling, low crawling, or you're jumping, or you're swinging your leg over, walls. You have to be able to have your body move fluidly. And if it's really tight in some directions, then other things kind of take over for it, and that can cause some sprains or strains or injuries. Other things are obviously a strengthening program for those areas that you work on a lot. So we do a ton of pulling, overhead grip, carrying heavy things. Those sorts of things, doing those in practice will help your body be prepared as well. Nutrition, being well hydrated, making sure you're not eating junk, reducing alcohol intake as well. All those things help your body to be at its best. I'm not a nutritionist, but there's a lot of common sense things that people don't do, I think, and they expect their body to perform. And then the other thing is resting. So if you are doing really hard training on, Monday and Thursday, making sure the days after that are some recovery days, and making sure you're getting plenty of sleep as well. these are all ideal situations, but all of them add up because you could go to the ninja gym and just crush it every night, but then your forearms are never recovered, so you need to have variety in what you do with your training as well, but it needs to be consistent. Don't think that training just once or twice a week is going to get you real far in OCR or let you accomplish your goals.
Gotcha. Good one. Now, we had some other questions come in. So Ashley says, kind of along the similar topic, any trends do you see in OCR athletes as far as injuries go? And kind of related to Amy's point, how to prevent those. So any like common OCR injuries that
I would say the most common like traumatic one, like that happens at a race, is the old ankle sprain, the ankle roll. I see that a lot. And those are things that, in a few weeks, they're typically better, but there again, you're starting with, range of motion, you're using ice on it, you're using compression, and then you start doing some strengthening exercises with that ankle to get it back to where it needs to be. More of the overuse type of injuries I see are shoulders, especially with the heavy, like the obstacle dense type of races, with like the Savage or the CTG, things where you're hanging a lot. Those I see a lot of different, like tendonitis in the shoulder or impingement in the shoulder. And that a lot of comes from imbalances. So tightness like in the pecs and the lats, and then weakness of that rotator cuff. So that would be, the first attack again is making sure the motion is good and then strengthening the rotator cuff and then the muscles that stabilize your shoulder blade. And there's pretty specific things. It's hard to describe through talking, but the shoulder is definitely one of the biggest ones with OCR. And then knee would be the second one that you see the cumulative effects of that, because a knee can get twisted, in a race or something. And sometimes you don't feel stuff till later on, or you have poor running form. And you're constantly causing friction someplace on the knee. So again, making sure your body moves well. One of the easiest things, like I said, is getting that IT band to be loosened up with foam rolling or using the scraping tools, massage, those sorts of things, or massage therapy guns. And then stretching out your hip flexors. So the front part of your hip always gets really tight. And that can cause some imbalances in the knee as well. Sometimes unlocking those two things are pretty simple, but they can really help those areas.
Got it. So Ashley also followed it up with, if you could give one piece of advice to athletes, what would it be? Again, obviously, pretty big topic there, and yeah.
One piece of advice: don't let your ego get in the way. Meaning, sometimes people will see a race, and then another race, and another race, and this one's longer, and this one's longer, and then they just keep like upping the ante every time. It's when you first start something, you just want to do all of it. So, and then with COVID happening and us not having any races, and we're all jumping into everything that we can. So be careful with some of that. So don't let your ego get in the way too much. And select some races that are your A races. Find some big things that you really want to train up to, and then make those your focus instead of having everything be your focus. I think goal setting is really important in athletics. I know this isn't physical stuff, but it will help you align what you want to do physically if you have goals in mind, specific things that you're working towards, and it'll help you with that consistency of training as well.
Agreed. I love all the things you were saying there. I know when I came into the sport of obstacle course racing, people were like, "This is my first year racing. I'm doing an ultra beast," and I was like, "What?" I was like, "You're doing? Why would you do that?" Like, I was very taken aback by how quickly people would go like, "Oh, I found obstacle course racing. I did a 5K, and now I signed up for an ultra beast in 2 months." And you're like, your body needs like time to build up. It was really foreign to me. And then the frequency of racing was also, I was kind of taken aback with, because I was used to like, I followed a lot of marathoners who were like, I race twice a year and like, that's it. And I was like, so that's what I was used to, where like I would have these long buildups and I would, do one marathon and then maybe follow it up with a couple of, or use a couple of like races in between as kind of like training races, training
Mm-hmm.
runs. And then I jumped into OCR and it was like, everyone's like, I'm racing every weekend, here are my, it's like the social media world where it's like, it's like, I feel like you constantly have to like be putting yourself out there. So it was a mental adjustment largely, but
Yeah,
yeah.
because unfortunately, sometimes people, they get burnt out real fast then, and they don't return to the sport. And I want as many people to do OCR as possible. I mean,
Yes.
recently, I usually don't race weekend after weekend after weekend, but I did do that recently. Did a bunch of things in a row, but some were pretty short, easy things, and then some were my big races, like
Right.
High Rocks and Tough Mudder and stuff. So
And like you said, you've prioritized them in your mind, right? I do the same thing where
yeah.
I'll show up. You'll see me race 2 or 3 weekends in a row, and it's like, oh well, that's too much. It's like, well, I'm not tapering for some of those, and like honestly, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying my best on race day. Don't get me wrong, but like, it's not
You
an A
you know that,
race. Yeah,
yeah, you
like
know it's not gonna be your best.
yeah,
Yeah, and I've been doing this for 11 years as well. So, you know, when you like, if someone's only been doing it for like 2 months, and then I'm like, ooh, that's not a good thing. They get burnt out or they get injured.
right, right. Gotcha. All right, so Michelle Warnke just chimed in again. We the Conquer the Gauntlet Pro team's like in nice big broad questions, broad topics here. So Michelle Warnke, I want to know best recovery techniques. Again, kind of a broad
Okay.
question there, but
Um, I think recovery, the most essential thing is that you're getting your blood flowing in your body, but you're not taxing it so much. So you want your heart rate to be pretty low, but you want your body to be moving easy. So best recovery things are easy bike riding, and then doing things like yoga or dynamic stretching exercises. Recovery day could be about a half hour. So you might be biking or, elliptical or something like that, or just walking, but then also doing movements with your entire body. So taking it through yoga type of stretches or dynamic stretches that you would have done for a warm up, but you just do them at a slower pace. If you have any, we call it, little nagging things, tightness here or there, using scraping tools or massage gun, foam rolling, taking those recovery days to focus on some of that self-care stuff that way. But also doing movement, not just laying in bed on a rest day. And that's why we call it recovery. Like she questioned, instead of rest.
yeah,
Because even after, say like World's Toughest Mudder, like that next day you need to like move a little bit. Because if you don't, you will turn into a big piece of rust. So, but yeah, gentle movement where you're getting all of your body moving, keeping your heart rate pretty low though, but getting the blood flowing in your body. There's things like the Normatec boots and different things like that can help push fluid around in your body. I like those devices too, but I only have them for my legs. So
yeah.
you want to do something for your whole body.
Good stuff. And then she also followed it up with best warm-up techniques in order of them. So she's, like things like foam rolling, scraping, joint rotations, jogging drills, etc. So kind of, I'm going to expand on her question a little bit, but like,
Yeah.
how should we be warming up, and, we doing big muscle groups first, small muscle groups later,
Yeah.
or vice versa, and kind of, stretching versus static stretching versus dynamic, stuff like that.
All right. So typical warm-up should be, you're going to do like large muscle group things first. So I'll give an example. So there's like a 40-yard turf section in my gym. So I start with skipping forwards, skipping backwards. Then I do side shuffling each direction. And then I'm going to do some different type of skipping drills where it's more of you kind of hop on one foot, hop on the other foot. I do them forward and backwards. And then I do some things laterally as well. So that would kind of be the start for some of the legs. And then I would go a little bit slower into some walking lunges, and then I'm going to rotate and stretch with my arms as well. So I'm incorporating my trunk in after that. And I kind of go down, down, and back. And then to move on to like the upper body, I get the muscles to engage a little bit before I stretch them. So I'm going to use one of those like stretchy bands, do some pull aparts. I'm working on like pulling that band apart. So I'm engaging my scapular muscles and back. So I would do that first. And then I would use like the PVC pipe, the round, like where you lift it up and over your head and back around. Those sorts of things. Static stretching is going to be reserved for after your workout, always. So you always want to do something dynamic first and then mobility. So you want to warm your body up, get those muscles, stretched, or get the muscles pliable, and then do some of your movements. You can foam roll after you do like your dynamic warm-up stuff. If you've got a few spots that are, bothering you, because if you get some blood flowing and warmth in the muscles, then that foam rolling is going to be a little more efficient instead of just doing it cold. And you can foam roll your lats, your IT bands, those sorts of things. But static stretching is always after the workout is done. Your muscles are most pliable, and there's nothing that says that static stretching prevents injury. Preventing injury is making sure your body moves in all the directions it needs to. So having the correct mobility. So static stretching can be a good way to kind of cool down and slow down. But that is always going to be after you're done working out.
Got it. All right. Good answers. I think that kind of wraps up our Q&A portion. Again, thanks for your insight. I think there's a lot of good material people can take with them and apply in whether they're training or racing, or even they're not doing OCR but getting into other sports, because I think the general principles there apply to all fitness type stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's jump into Tougher Mudder, right? So Tougher Mudder, 2 events. They did one in Atlanta. That was their relaunch, and then they did the Tougher Mudder Missouri, which was at the old Battlegrounds. And you used to be on the Battlegrounds team, correct? That's correct.
Yeah, right?
So
it was old stomping grounds.
Yeah. So give me some of your thoughts on the return of Tough Mudder, and we can go back and forth because I was there also. And what'd you think of the Tough Mudder back in action?
I really enjoyed it. I have been doing some racing and some things, but I have not done a 10-mile obstacle course race in a long time. I've done some 5Ks or some 6-mile ones. So I knew it was going to be a little bit more grind than I had been used to. But the venue is awesome. The parking and getting there, all of that was very easy. I thought the registration was, that was simple to walk into.
I'm gonna chime in. The registration was faster than when it was. Tough Mudder used to send everyone who was a Tougher Mudder participant, the competitive wave, to 2 lines, and that was it.
Yeah.
And now that Spartans take over, they're like, go to any lane, and it was 10 times faster than it normally is.
Yeah. Once it opened, it was it was good.
They were running a little bit behind schedule, but I mean, first wave of the day, it happens. I'm not even.
Yeah, and my daughter was running later on that day, and they didn't give me any hassle of checking her in at that time.
Oh, nice.
Sometimes they're like, no, you got to wait. But so that was because I was like, can I check her in too? And I thought they were going to say no, but they didn't.
Yeah, because they told people don't show up more than an hour early because they were trying to limit the number of people in there due to COVID. But
they were nice.
Common sense prevailed. That's good to see.
Yes. Of course, and then the start was over in a different area than it had been before. We kind of went off a different direction. But Sean Corvell was there, of course, giving his speech, and that's always great. It was a huge tougher wave. They said it was one of the biggest ones. I've been in tougher races. I don't know.
Sean Corvell said it was the largest tougher wave he's ever seen, and I agree. I've been to I don't know, maybe 8 of them or so. But usually they're a lot sparser. I mean, it was deep. That was a deep. It's a deep field.
Yeah, it was good. I thought the course layout was good as well. Like there's plenty of like space to pick up your speed and run. There's a few obstacles that weren't there that are usually pretty classic to Tough Mudder. And I don't know why, if it was a COVID thing or not. Like
Oh,
Everest, they didn't have Everest.
yeah. They did remove Everest due to COVID because everyone's like
Yeah,
touching and grabbing
yeah.
each
So
other
that was
and
the
breathing on
only
each
that was the
other.
only like disappointment was like that big one because that's a big obstacle,
Yeah.
big fun ones.
And pyramid skiing
Um,
wasn't there either. Now that I think about it,
right, it's another kind of
that's
touching
another.
each other.
Yeah, but I mean, you can do it where they hang ropes down, so you can do it by
Hmm.
yourself. You don't need a team. But now that you mention it, yeah, those are both missing.
Yeah, like I said, I thought the order of things was good. You weren't like, sometimes you're covered in mud and then you have to go do funky monkey type of thing. Um, I didn't feel, you know what I mean? Sometimes that's just like, okay. So I
Yeah,
thought that was the order of the obstacles and stuff was good. The terrain there was excellent too. There wasn't any cramped spaces where it was like bottlenecked or anything. And
I
even
couldn't
going out.
believe how. So the battlegrounds course was usually only like 5 miles, maybe up to 6 at most.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
couldn't believe they crammed a full, like my watch said over 10 miles when I finished. And
Yeah, mine
Tough
too.
Mudder, historically, they'll say 10 miles and then it'll come out to like 8.5 or something, but I was like, maybe under new management, they're actually being serious about it because they squeezed in a full 10 miles plus over that terrain, which I was shocked with. And, I've run Battleground several times before, and for large portions of the race, I had no idea where I was. Like, I was just like, I don't know what part of the venue I'm at, but I know I'm
Yeah.
still on course because it's well marked. So,
Yeah, I thought the course was marked well too, because they had like the 5K and stuff there as well, but I knew where to go, wherever I was at, whichever turn. Like I said, they utilized the terrain really well. You got to go in like the creek a little bit and some different things that way.
I was happy about
I
that too because that was marked real well. I remember doing Battlegrounds one year and like going into the creek and being like,
where am I?
where am I
Yeah.
going now?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And Arctic Enema had lots and lots and lots of ice.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in it before where it was cold, but like this had like, I don't know, there you could not see any water. It was all ice. So it was a good Arctic Enema. It was classic. And then
the temperature was, I mean, it was like 52 and cloudy. So it was,
yes, it was not a warm day.
No,
it was not warm. There was a lot of purple and blue lipped people by the end of that race.
One of my friends, Kim, who's probably running in about top, somewhere between 5th and 10th, ended up getting pulled off the course due to hypothermia, like after
really?
Arctic Enema. It was, it's cold. It's cold out there.
Yeah, yes, it was. I was not super happy about that, but I sucked it up. I was glad they had rope-a-dope on there. I like that obstacle.
That's you jump to the rope and then climb up and then slide down the pole or rope, depending on how they set it up. And Kelly was actually on the Tough Mudder Instagram. If anyone wants to go back.
Yeah, it was very funny for people to watch me do that. So
she shimmied down the pole like a koala bear.
Yeah, I didn't slide. I was expecting my body to slide and it did not. So anyways, I gave some people a few good laughs on that. At the end, there was a gauntlet of obstacles all, kind of in a row. And I thought that was good as well. Block Ness only had, I think, I don't know, it seemed smaller. I don't know if there was only 2 or 3 blocks on that.
There's only 2. They've only been doing 2 recently. Way back when they first introduced it, and let's see, was it Las Vegas 2016 maybe, or maybe 17? There was like 4 blocks.
4, yeah. I guess I'm thinking of World's Toughest Mudder too. I know it always seems like it's a lot of them in there. And then they had a big Mudder horn obstacle, towards the end as well that, you could see from the festival area and stuff.
Yeah, sponsored by Rain, the Rain's Mudder horn.
Yeah.
It's they're giving out free Rains there, so if you want 300 milligrams of caffeine before you start running,
really get jacked up.
Yeah. I'm waiting for the event when it's like, 95 degrees and people show up drunk and they're like, you know what I should need now? 300 milligrams of caffeine to my brain right before I start running. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, they also, and Kyle was there. That was pretty cool. He was there. He was very visible. I talked to him a few times. And they had the awards like lickety split because
Yes.
I was like, I didn't even change. I didn't have a chance to change because I was, talking to my daughter and stuff. And I was like, he's like, no, the awards will be in like 2 minutes. I'm like, oh, fantastic.
So if anyone's not tracking, Kyle McLaughlin
Mm-hmm.
is the CEO of Tough Mudder. So he's visible. He's out there, and since he's taken over, he's been doing great. Just going out and interacting with people, super friendly. Said hi to me when I crossed the finish line. He was there to like welcome everyone and knew me by name, which was not that I was expecting that, but that was nice. I appreciated that, and super nice.
Yeah,
and like you said, that award ceremony was the fastest award ceremony I've ever seen. I was like, oh, are you serious? Like, we're doing it right now? All right. So we knocked it out.
I was super happy. And I went out, back out on course with my daughter. And I saw Kyle back out there then. And this is hours later. He was still out there. So he's definitely visible. So yeah, the award ceremony was good. They had festival stuff going on like the whole time I was there too. Later on, I won a push-up contest. So I got a case of rain. I won a case of rain. Yeah, I got all the caffeine I could want.
Yes, I'm jealous.
So that was fun.
I also liked, so the entrance and exit, they put the merch tent like at the entrance and exit, kind of like Disney. I know you'll appreciate this as a former Disney character. They put them like you walk in and out of the merch tent to enter the festival and leave the festival, which I appreciated as a business move, because I think it's a smart business move, and then also appreciate it because I like merch. I like it. Look, even if I'm not buying anything, I like at least looking and seeing what's available. And they did have they did have a really nice that I almost bought, but I already have too many World's Toughest Motor patches. But they had like one of the plasticky, like I want to say PVC type, like where it's like a raised 3D elevated surface World's Toughest Motor patch for $5 that I almost bought.
I didn't see that one.
It's nice. Maybe I'll buy it next time, but it's a nice patch. And I thought the course was great. The new obstacle was Castaway, which sit on. It looks like a floating punching bag, kind of like a floating punching bag that you can put one or two people on, or maybe you can squeeze more if you really want to, and then you kind of pull yourself across. So you're kind of going around like it reminds me of Black Widow, but you're sitting on this floating thing and pulling yourself across. How was your experience on that?
I fell off it like.
Did you really?
Because I was trying to rush it. I was trying to go super fast, and then eventually I just locked my legs around it, and then I totally just used my arms. I didn't.
That's what
float.
I did.
I didn't float on it at all. I just did a traverse with just my arms.
Yeah, my legs were wrapped around it, and I was like completely sideways. Like the floaty thing is all the way off to my right, and I'm just like pulling with my arms to get across.
I was glad I had some upper body strength, because I was like, okay. It was my 13-year-old's favorite thing now. Well, not favorite, but she liked it.
I think that'll be. I think when if for the open waivers, I think that'll be a ton of fun. Trying to cram a couple people on there and trying to keep it upright. I think that'll be a good experience for people.
Oh yeah.
And then the gauntlet, so the gauntlet was over land instead of water, which is a change for most people.
Yeah, they had a little difference on that too. The handholds you had a choice.
Yeah. So they had the normal start, the balance beam into like the Superman traverse, and then normal rings. Actually, it felt like there was maybe one or two more rings than normal to me. I could be wrong. And then just the tip part of the obstacle, where it's like the sideways traverse with the wooden beam, and then normally it's like two pegs or the metal
trailer hitch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There was that lane, but then there was also like rock climbing holds as an alternative. Yeah. And I would have gone with I like the trailer hitch just because I've got my technique down for it. But I just picked the lane, didn't realize they were different. And I got the rock climbing holds, and I like that less. Although I think if my hands were muddy, I think it would have been better, because I think you'd have had a better grip on it. But the spacing on the pegs I like better, because I can just basically go peg back to board, versus the rock climbing holds. I had to use several of them because they were just kind of like awkwardly spaced for me. What were your
Yeah,
thoughts?
you had to use more times of holding onto stuff. Yeah, I did it twice that day. I went back once with my daughter, but yeah, I used the rock climbing holds, and they were different positions too, depending on what lane you're in.
Gotcha.
So little variety.
Yeah. But overall, really good event. I got a review coming out of Mud Run Guide for them. The my only two, I'm going to give them, I'm going to say negatives, but only because I'm trying to improve. One, you came in second place, and so did I. Tell me about your second place finishers medal.
They're what medal?
Yeah.
So they just gave us another finisher medal. Like it wasn't even like didn't say you won second place. Nothing.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything unique compared to the finisher medal.
So
and that was kind of like wah wah.
So if you're in the top three, come in third or first. Because the third and first had different color medals. They had a bronze and a gold medal. But the silver medal, because the finisher medals are silver, they just reuse the finisher medal. So I have two medals that are exactly the same. But yeah. But the cool thing is, and you can tell, I don't know if you've been like paying attention to their social media, but you can tell there's a magnet on the back. So when you get the Holy Grail, your medals are actually going to stick to the Holy Grail, right? It's going to be like the top of the crown.
Yeah, that looked pretty cool. That I think the last 2 years that I've done the Holy Grail, but this year I will not be doing the Holy Grail, and it's the coolest one.
Oh yeah, the first year it was just a giant beer mug, which people were really like unreasonably upset with, and then the second and third year it was essentially a
chalice.
plastic chalice. The first one I had, the walking back into my hotel after World's Toughest Mudder, like coming back, I went from two different hotels. I was on a work trip. Long story. I'm walking back into the hotel, like after traveling with this thing for the last 8 hours, and I drop the box walking into the hotel and I break it. I was like, oh, good thing I carried this delicately for the last 8 hours.
Just snapped.
But I glued it back together, and it basically sits on my shelf, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I think if you haven't seen the Holy Grail for this year, I would check it out. It's pretty cool. It's worth if you're a swag type person, I think it's worth showing up to all three events. And even if you're not a swag type person, I really like Toughest Mudder and Tough Mudder, so
yeah,
they did a good job. And then the podium prizes, they had some Everyman Jack, so the soap and deodorant company, and they give you some like a little swag bag and then a gift card too. So I just ordered some deodorant and some sunscreen that I'm going to use for races. So
I gave away my swag bag because it was for guys.
yeah.
That was like, oh, okay, here you go.
Mine's got a lot of beard supplies in there, which doesn't really helpful because the Army wasn't let me grow a beard, but I am moving this summer, so I might let my facial hair grow out so I can use some of their soft products on my face. Yeah, but overall, loved it. I think again, if I can make like one wish, I wish Tough Mudder and or the Battlegrounds property owners would have kept some of the Battlegrounds obstacles in there, so we would have had some like venue unique obstacles, right? Because my favorite obstacle at Battlegrounds was the gauntlet, right? It was like 6 lanes. It was like choose your own adventure rig type thing. And some of them were crazy looking, right? I mean, looks like bodies hanging down that like on a balance beam that you had to cross. One of them was like a vertical chain link fence traverse. If you look through my book, Strength and Speed's Guide to Elite Obstacle Course Racing, you see like a lot of obstacles that are just kind of like really weird and really kind of crazy looking in there. A lot of it's from the gauntlet because there was just so many different things in there that I pulled techniques from that I used to help explain obstacles in my book. And I had pictures because it's like right at the finish line. So,
yeah, that was definitely their coolest obstacle they had there.
And then the big slide was just kind of like, no longer in use, which is a shame. So I would have really liked to see like, Tough Mudder at the Battlegrounds and then they incorporate some venue unique obstacles. But they're a big brand, so they kind of like McDonald's, right? Like they want to give the same experience regardless of where you are in the nation. So you know exactly what you're getting when you sign up versus a smaller OCR. It's a little more fast and loose.
Gotcha. Agreed.
Cool. Then before we get going, you also came in second at High Rocks in the pro division, which is different from the elite division, which I just learned. So one, tell us a little bit about High Rocks, and then two, explain that for people, because I was very confused as people were posting podium pictures that weekend, and it was like, I came in second, and I was like, then someone else posted the same picture, like a different picture, a different podium, and they're like, I came in second, and I was like, well, neither one of these are age groups. Like, I don't understand what's going on. So explain the different divisions at High Rocks, and then also kind of like what it is for those who may not be tracking.
Yeah, well, this year they added another division, and I'm pretty sure it was something to hype everything up again for actually getting back to racing these events. So High Rocks is I guess, considered a functional fitness event, and it's comprised of, you do 8 rounds of a 1K run and then a fitness event. It ranges from, sled pushing and pulling to sandbag lunges and wall balls and rowing and ski erg, all those things. So, and it's a timed event. Obviously, whoever crosses the finish line first wins. But they had an elite invitational division. So the people that were the reigning champs from their last year, which was Lauren Weeks and Hunter McIntyre, they got to invite people. They get to invite people that they could race against. So it was pretty cool that way. So that was a special group, and they went off on their own. The invitational group, they had their own starting time, and then they had bigger cash prizes. Typically, there is only the pro division and then the age group division. But they had the elite, they had the pro, and then they had the age groups. I raced in the pro because I've done it a few times last year as well, and I placed second in that, and I was kind of shocked to tell you the truth. But they have so many like stats and things like that. I guess what I was most proud of is I would have finished 8th if I was in the invitational. So, because I did the same race as they did, just at a different, you went off in waves. And so I would have finished 8th, I believe, overall, like in the invitational. So that to me was even better than finishing second in the pro. So it was pretty cool that way. They had a lot of different waves, and I was like in the last women's pro wave. And so I didn't have anybody to like run against. It was hard. It wasn't like head to head like I wanted it to be. But still, it's like a rock star event. That's like, it's like a club music and lights, and it's it's an experience. You should definitely do one, Evan.
Yeah. And you were I also saw you on the Spartan page. They had your picture as pushing the sled.
So I've done
twice on social media in the same week by Spartan Tough Mudder there for you.
I know they don't know who I am, but they must like me. So I did the Decafit, and that is Spartan's answer to High Rocks.
Right.
So that's their indoor functional fitness event, which is 10 different stations with, running in between. So you're running 10 times, but that one only equals a 5K, whereas High Rocks is an 8K.
Got it.
So this one it's a little bit faster. The stations are a little bit, they're shorter. Like if you're going to do the ski erg, it's 500 meters instead of 1,000, like at High Rocks. And then some of the weights, they're just less. So it's definitely a faster event. But it's, again, it's an indoor event, arena style, and they did a great job at it. There's live announcing, like commentator, you could hear him the whole time. And that was head to head. Like the Decafit was head to head because it's pretty new, I guess. And there was a small elite wave when I did that one in Atlanta. So that was head to head, and that was fun. You could push yourself. You knew where you were at against your competitors. Where at High Rocks was so big. I had so many people. I had no clue where I was at. But yeah, so I'd done both of those. I finished 4th at the Decafit in Atlanta. So yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to get going. Before we go, though, anything people would be surprised to know about you besides that you were a Disney character, which is still I think was my
Your
all-time
favorite, I
favorite one.
know.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to ask me that, and I have been racking my brain. And I've said all of them every time I've been on the show. I don't really, no, I don't really have anything new. But yes, I was a Disney character before. I was Mickey.
Mickey's a girl sometimes.
So I've been underneath the whole thing, and I know all the secrets down there at Disney.
Is Mickey always a girl, or does it change?
A lot of times, sometimes there's guys that are mini. They're really short. You got to be like under 5 feet tall.
So is there like a height standard for each character?
That's how each character, is decided. So I was always the short ones. I could be like Mickey, Minnie, Timon, Piglet. Yeah, Donald
This is
Duck.
amazing. I like this even better.
The worst day I had was I was Timon, and it was like 100 degrees out there in Disney. That's a full fur costume. Woo, that was a tough day.
How long do they leave you? How long do they leave you in the costume before you get?
Not long. They switch you out very often, because they know you're you're dying inside there.
Just a sweat box in there.
Yeah. So it was my practicing for extreme conditions in OCR, being in a costume.
They obviously they clean it between people, I'm assuming.
I don't know. This was pre-COVID, so I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So does it? I mean, is it a little rough smelling in there, or is it like?
No. There's huge costume facilities, and yes, they clean them, and you put them in a dirty spot, and they get cleaned. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's it's massive.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, describe how massive it is.
Disney doesn't do anything small, right? I mean, they're all in. So yeah, that's pretty good. All right, from mine, this one we'll go back to something that kind of started in childhood, and I was just bored, so I was adding things up. So I used to love playing video games, specifically arcade games, and at one point, probably when I was in like high school, I started keeping track of like all the arcade games I've finished, like in the arcade. And I found the old list a couple days ago, and I was like, oh, I haven't updated this in a while, so started updating it, and luckily, if anyone's familiar with arcade games, they've basically like the production of arcade games has essentially come to a standstill. Like they stopped producing them because you can make better, more profitable games at home. So there's almost no new arcade games coming out. Like all the arcade games that are out now have been the same ones that have been out for the last 5, maybe even 10 years. There's a company called Raw Thrills that essentially is like the only one still making games. So I started updating my list. And I think I'm at around, I finished about 93 arcade games, which I imagine is pretty high compared to most people who probably don't play arcade games very often. And not a whole lot of skill there. It's mostly just standing in front of the machine, pumping quarters into it. But you get better at it just like anything else. Like, I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I used to go watch people at the arcade. So essentially kind of like training with mirror neurons, right? Like where you're watching someone else do something and then you get better at it because you're watching it, right? Like I would watch other older kids play video games and kind of figure out what works. And then I didn't realize that that's what I was doing at the time. I was just watching them, but then use that to get better. And, a lot of them have the same basic format, right? Like I mostly play light gun games, right? So like if I know how to aim a gun and shoot, and there's certain, you shoot the things that pop up and you don't shoot the innocent targets and etc. So yeah, a lot of arcade games. Time Crisis is probably my favorite because that one you actually have a pedal and you step on the pedal to go in and out of cover, so you can actually control how much you get shot versus some of the other ones are, especially the ones that are like stationary guns where the gun's like locked to the platform. You essentially can't control what you're doing. Like the enemy's just jumping out and shooting you, and you're like, you're just literally stealing my money. This is not ideal, but I like Time Crisis is probably my favorite. Yeah.
All right. Arcade games. Ooh, yeah. Can't say I've played many of those ever.
Missing out.
Not a video game person. However, watching other people do things that correlates with OCR very well, because that's when I can't finish a rig or something, I just watch how other people do it a lot of times and then try to mimic what they're doing as well.
Yeah, good advice. Speaking of OCR World Championships website on their blog, Just a new article just went up in the last week called 5 Tips to Prevent You from Getting Stuck at an Obstacle or something like that. So that's one of my newest articles up there. I got stuff publishing almost weekly. I don't know how quickly they're pushing them out, but I've got a lot in the queue that is coming out before World Championships. So make sure you check that out. Mud Run Guide just published another one of my articles about Thomas Van Tonder doing his world record rope climb. So check that out. Big news from Mud Gear. Bobby Ross's video debuted. So if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. It's called Mud Gear Made Tougher. It's a 3-minute video. Talks about, or doesn't really talk about it. It shows and puts the music. Athletes waking up early, training hard, training long, getting ready to race, and kind of shows Mud Gear's commitment to OCR and the brand and the type of athletes they support, both formally and informally. And then on top of that, me and Bobby Ross, if you actually go to the Mud Gear Facebook page, from the 12th of May, me and Bobby Ross did like a 5 to 10 minute pre-show and like a 15-minute post-show talking about the video, kind of the making of, behind the scenes, and some other exciting projects we have coming up. Kelly, what do you got coming up before I let you go?
I have a few local OCR races coming up, but then I am going to do the U.S. Championship race for High Rocks. I qualified for that, and that's in Chicago at the end of June. So that is my A game right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Same weekend as Indian Mud Run? It's like a 26th?
It is.
Yeah.
I had to, unfortunately, they moved all of those races, and then, but yes, I've been selectively training for like High Rocks and those sorts of things over the last year, more so than OCR at this point. So I have to go.
That makes sense. No, I think that's a good call for you. And Morgan Schultz was on the podcast. I thought that was a good call for her too. Like, I mean, if you're doing well at that high of a level in High Rocks, like, by all means, like, I would shift the focus. I mean, that's why I shifted the focus to OCR, because I was doing these other sports, and then I found OCR. I was like, I'm doing much better in this than I've done in anything else. Like, what am I doing? Why am I doing marathon running? It's not a useful useful use of my time.
Yeah.
Other than that, head over to teamstrengthspeed.com. I just found 10 Blegmit lights that I didn't know I had. So Blegmit lights mediums are back in stock if anyone wants to order them. Also, just put in a new order from Australia. So we're going to have small, medium, and large coming in. So by the time you listen to this, the pre-order will be open for the small and the largest. If you order the mediums, they'll show up essentially in a couple days. The Mud Gear video, go watch the Mud Gear video if you haven't seen it. Have you watched it, Kelly?
I did. That was really cool. Yeah. Scott told me about it. I was like, oh, sweet.
Yeah, and you'll recognize a lot of names, faces and names in there. Scott Rosecki's in there. Jacob Stone's in there. Brenna Calvert. It's filmed a lot largely at Casey Timber Challenge and CrossFit on Concord, a local gym here at Leavenworth, Kansas. And Jenny Overstreet's in it. And then you got to look really close, but Miranda Huber's in there, and Amy Pagic's in there. A lot of them are like kind of like their leg shots. They're kind of like it's hard to tell it's them, but it's them. Jay Flores is in there. So a large amount of the Concord on the pro team, some strength and speed people, and then some other kind of local people from kind of CTG, right? Laura Royster's in there. So pretty cool stuff. And then by the time you listen to this, you need to head over to Bobby Ross's YouTube page. I'm going to drop the link down below in the comments, because I filmed a fight scene with an MMA fighter, and it came out awesome. So
I can't wait to see that.
It's so good. And it solves the age-old question, which is a better energy drink, Bang or Rain, because we needed a reason to fight, and we didn't have any other ideas at the time. So that's what we're fighting over. So make sure you check it out. The dialogue is hysterical because it's like purposely cheesy. Because all we really cared about was like filming the actual fight. Like we want to film the fight, and it was harder and easier at the same time than I was expecting. There's parts that were a lot harder, parts that were a lot easier. I think Bobby's video will have. We did like a little interview afterwards. We'll have some of that. So definitely check that out. Make sure you subscribe to his YouTube so we continue to produce fun content like that. And then other than that, as usual, all my books are available on my website and on Amazon. So you can just search for my name, Evan for Paris, and they'll all come up. And then you can buy them hard copy or digital. And yeah, I think that's about it. Kelly, thanks for coming on. Any final shout outs you want to give?
No, just thanks for having me on again. Always a pleasure talking to you. I was glad I got to see you at Tough Mudder.
Yeah. So I'll see you, I don't know, maybe late Frontline. You going to Frontline?
Yes, I will be at Frontline. You're going to be at Frontline?
I'm probably going to that. Yeah.
All right.
One of my cousins is graduating high school. So we're going to Frontline and then go visit her and then come back home. So,
all right. I will see you in a few weeks then. Very good.
All right. All right. We'll catch you later.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.